And the three phases, as I showed you in the other slide, were getting their knowledge ready, acting on the ideas to build new knowledge, and then storing it. So those three key aspects. And they're not going to happen if I don't put in place the actions. They won't happen necessarily if I don't put in place those actions. And I'm only going to put the actions in place if I believe they'll work. And if I believe I can do them. And if I can see when to do them. Now, another key idea, and this is to do with this explicitness. Giovanna, it was wonderful you mentioned the explicitness, is the actions we're talking about the children learning. These actions are actually managed in our minds as self-talk, as self-scripts in a language. So what we're wanting the children to learn explicitly about the literacy is what to tell themselves to do. What are the actions they tell themselves to use? The self-talk. How do I tell if my Year 8 class at Thornbury or my Grade 4 class, how do I tell if they are learning the literacy actions? As I said it a bit earlier, it's what the children can tell me they will use. So my literacy teaching needs to be having the children say the actions they're going to be using. I'm not going to get very far if my students are saying, this is no good, doesn't interest me, I can't do this. We know the more the children use self-talk that's negative, it's closing down their thinking at that moment. We want them to be able to say, when I read a text, I will. When I find a sentence hard to comprehend, I'll try to visualize it. I'll try to say other words for it. So we're wanting to build, as a critical part of our literacy, the self-talk. And so we want one aspect of the teaching in every one of the activity zone schools should be focused, on achievement schools, definitely get it right. On the achievement zone schools is that we're building the children's self-talk so they can guide their way through a task. Now, a bit later this morning, we've got to say, when will we be doing that in our teaching? How will we be doing it? I'm just pointing out that we need this as an outcome at this point. The self-talk is critical. And so the next two slides are on about self-talk. Now, the slides I'm showing you are slides I've taken from the earlier notes. So they're already in the notes. So self-talk about their meaning-making motor. Self-talk about, at the end of a lesson, having the kids review the vocabulary, making sure that after the children have read a text, they look back over it and say to themselves, well, what were the new words? How will I say them? What do they mean? What are good synonyms for them? What picture will I link with them? If children can use the self-talk, they're going to be able to manage their own learning, and they will make our lives as teachers much easier. Okay, so what I've tried to put in place so far is the literacy framework, or it's really also the teaching framework that we're coming at from this. And so the rest of the discussion is really developing from those points. What am I calling literacy knowledge? Literacy knowledge is what a person knows about text at any point. It's what they also know about how to act on text to build new knowledge. And it's how to act on the text that we're wanting to change. Okay, so if we want to look at embedding the high reliability strategies in your teaching, there are 3 or 4 key fronts that I think you need to be working on at once. And obviously the first one is to actually teach them in your classes. And we're going to unpack that more and more today. And that's the first one that I've mentioned on your, in that diagram on page 1. The second one, I believe at the same time, over say term 3, term 4, that you're embedding them in your classes. So if we take Giovanna's example, sorry Giovanna, you know, Giovanna is looking at explicitly working on these in her classes. At the same time, Giovanna is able to feed back to the staff at Darebin Thornbury College about how it's going. A third key aspect is that the school leadership team at the school, that Peter and your school leadership team are fully endorsing what you're doing, that they're advocating for you, that they're indicating to the staff that what you're giving back is important, that they're seeing the work that Giovanna is doing as being critical for the school's future. And I happen to believe that Peter does believe that. That really that this is being done. Remember, I'm really working on this assumption that if it's not done, it's not communicated. We're guessing. And the fourth front on which we need to work is at the same time that Giovanna is actually looking at putting in place the literacy teaching that she and other teachers at Thornbury Darebin are looking at what school processes need to be in place for the staff in 2010 to learn more about it more fully. So we've got these 4 fronts going at once. And they're the 4 fronts that I've unpacked on the front page. And we're going to look at each one more in turn. Are they okay? So if we visualise what could be happening at Darebin, at Thornbury Darebin over the next 2 terms, Giovanna is putting the strategies in place, bit by bit, making them more explicit. Because I know you guys have already done a fair bit of work in that. There's also a regular feedback to the staff, and we'll look at what that could look like in a moment. Thirdly, there is this explicit activity by the school leadership team for all the reasons that you were suggesting, Laura. There is this explicit activity. The school leadership team is over it. They see this as being critical for the school. And fourthly, we're looking at building processes for the professional learning to occur more fully. And let's have a look at unpacking those. So what we're wanting to see is those 4 fronts moving in parallel. So if we take the first one, embedding the high reliability strategies in your classes, a key activity is going to be actually doing it. A second is going to have particular tools for monitoring how each one is going. And the only way that can be done is if you've made them explicit. If a Year 8 class, or if, as I said, if a Grade 4 class in August can say, before they begin to read about mini beasts, that they'll do 4 things. If that class can tell me in October, before they read about civics, that there are going to be 10 things, they've learnt. There's been progress. That's what we're wanting to see. That's the sort of formative data, the assessment for learning data, the